Hey adventurers, so today is going to be it's kind of just like a top 5 video, and this is a long time ago. Back in 2023 I was planning this video, and at the time I had stolen the idea from David Wiley. He had done a video like this about his top 5 science fiction books or something like that, and so I stole the video idea from him, and I never ended up making it, and so now I'm going back to it and am updating it. I'm filming it today because I will probably finish a book tomorrow that will be on this list, and I don't want to change. I want to talk about the books that are on this list, and so I will wait and do this again in a future video and talk about that new book once that gets on there. But suffice it to say that this video is almost out of date, and so I wanted to film this. By the time you're seeing it, it's definitely going to be out of date. But anyways, well, that's unless it fumbles the ending. But anyways, let's get into this. So the first one that I have of the 5, I listed 5 on here. They're in no particular order. You know what? They could almost be in order. So I think what I'm actually going to do, instead of what I was thinking was going to happen, was I was going to go from the top and just read down the list, and I think I'm going to switch it backwards and read it from the bottom of the list up to the top, because in that way then I can kind of keep some of that surprise of what is my favorite book, or what is possibly my favorite science fiction book on this list. And if I didn't mention that, this is my top 5 science fiction books at the moment. Only 5 because I haven't read that much science fiction still at the time of this video. I've read quite a bit, and I'm constantly reading more, consistently reading more, but it's still... Anyways, now I'm rambling, let's get into this. The Green Door of Fate by Craig Martelle is the first book on this list, and it's actually not a book, it's a short story, really. And this is one that I received, I think it was free on the author's website, or for joining his newsletter or something like that, and it was fascinating to me. This is one that I have talked about. I have a review of it. I should have a review of every single one of the books on that I talk, with the exception of one of them. I have reviews of all the books on this list, and it's just, this was a fantastic story for me. I don't know why it worked quite as well as it did. The idea of a door that cannot open, and like a mysterious door, what's behind this door, that sort of thing, that sort of mystery is one that will always get me, and one that I absolutely love. And so that's 100% part of why I love this short story. I know Craig Martelle is also an Alaskan author. He lives in Alaska, and so I like supporting that anyways, because that's fun, that's cool, that's something unique you don't often see. But also just, so it's military sci-fi. It's very military. Like it's a government agency has gone to do research on this green door that nobody knows what it is. It just, they discovered it. I don't know if it just appeared. I believe they discovered it, and they're trying to figure out what it is, where it leads, if it's actually a door. Like, what is this so-called green door? And it's a discussion. This short story is less of a discussion of finding answers to the door, and more of a look at, I guess you could say, how the media portrays events to some degree, and how the government likes to cover things up and hide things and not tell the truth with every situation. That sort of, like, it's that kind of angle of telling the story, and that's kind of the story of it. But it's framed with this Green Door of Fate. What is it? Who created it? Is it an actual door? Like, where does it lead if it is? All that kind of stuff. Those are the questions being posed, but that's not the story. And so obviously it's a short story. I'm not going to reveal the ending of the book, but it's that whole question. Basically, we're using the framing of asking these questions and trying to understand these things in order to tell the story that is being told, which is like a military sci-fi type story, and with government and media and stuff like that, and dissemination of information and stuff like that. And so it's just, to me, it was something that just really resonated in a way that I was not expecting at all. And I enjoyed this book this short story far more than I ever expected to. The next book on this list, though, is The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. This has been for a long time what I have considered my favorite science fiction book, and that could still be true. I have it so low on this list because of the fact that it's been 10, 15, probably not 15, it's probably been at least 10 years since I read it. I read this when I was in school. I don't remember if I was probably in high school, so probably about 10 years ago that I read this, and I loved it. It was so fascinating to me. It was so interesting. It was just on that edge of being creepy that made me love it for that aspect as well. As well as the fact that it's just a fantastic story that's being told. We have these big alien monsters, you can kind of see them. I love this cover, by the way, but you can kind of see the alien creatures on the front. It's actually a little bit clearer on the back there. Oh, and it's just these giant alien machines, and it reminds me, I actually think, now that I look back on it, that what I'm reminded of is based off of this, I kind of suspect. But the first 3-episode arc of Justice League the Animated Series, where we're first introduced to Martian Manhunter, and we're seeing this war between this alien race and that has come and invaded Earth, and the heroes and the uniting of the Justice League, and you have these walkers that appear that land just land on Earth, and sometimes in the middle of the city, who knows where it's going to be, and they just wreak havoc and destruction wherever they land. And reading this book, when I read this the first time, the only time when I read this book, it reminded me, harkened back to that image that I have from my childhood of watching Justice League the Animated Series. And it's stuck in my mind, and that correlation between the two has been there since I read this book, and makes me love the book even more because of that, even though I know that the book is like the original of that sort of idea. And just the whole alien invasion aspect of this, the science fiction aspect of it, there was enough scientific aspects or science fiction aspects to keep me interested, while also just telling a fantastic story. And so yeah, The War of the World by H.G. Wells. Then I have one that kind of could go 3 ways depending on what I choose to choose. And that is either Dandelion Wine, or Something Wicked This Way Comes, or Fahrenheit 451. Those 3 books by Ray Bradbury, all of them, in my mind, they're pretty much all sitting right alongside each other. I think what I'm going to have to do is kind of cheat a little bit to find an answer with this. And so Dandelion Wine is less science fiction than anything else, and so I'm going to have to remove that from the list so that we can find an answer here. But Dandelion Wine, absolutely fantastic. Probably would be my favorite my favorite Bradbury book that I've read so far, I think. Fahrenheit 451, so that leaves us with Fahrenheit 451 and Something Wicked This Way Comes. I feel like, this is where it's hard for me, because I feel like Something Wicked This Way Comes I prefer, but it's more horror than science fiction, and Fahrenheit 451 is actually his science fiction book. And so I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to, as much as I love Something Wicked This Way Comes, and as much as I prefer it as a book and as a story, I think I have to also put that one away because it's more horror than science fiction. Which leaves us with Fahrenheit 451, which is, of course, a dystopian novel. The whole premise of the story is that books and literature and reading does not exist anymore. It's not something common. If you see books, you're supposed to call the firemen, and the firemen are going to come burn the books because they're not supposed to exist. It causes free thinking. It causes people thinking for themselves, essentially. Using their ability to think and process information, and it distracts from the control that has been imposed on the minds of the populace. And there's so much more meaning to what the story is that's going on there, and the conclusions that come from that. But that's kind of the basic setup of the book, and it works really well. It's one of the best dystopians because it's one of the most realistic dystopian novels. And just because, even though this was written I forget when it was written, but it was written long enough ago that technology has advanced and kind of not quite lined up with what we see in the book. However, it's still so close to that just a couple more steps in the right direction, or the wrong direction, as it were, and we would be at Fahrenheit 451. It would be so quick, so easy, and like we're almost there. We're right there on the precipice of it, basically. And I don't think it's going to happen. Obviously, the dystopian novels are a way of looking at the world, looking at the future, trying to guess what could happen and say, we don't want this. That's what dystopian novels are for. And that really comes out with this book, and you kind of, it makes you think, for sure. But because it is definitely the most science fiction of the ones that I've read, and it's well, there might be some that are, I feel like Illustrated Man is a little bit more scientific or a little bit more science fiction, but I didn't enjoy it nearly as much. Also, it was the other one. October Country is another one that's kind of more science fiction-y in some aspects, or science fiction-y enough to be in this conversation as well. But of those three, even Fahrenheit 451 is my favorite of those three. So yeah, just another fantastic novel. I am talking way too long about all of these. So that brings us up to the second to last one that I have on the list. And although somewhere we do have a single volume of this book, I can't find it, and so I'm going to hold up The Giver Quartet and talk about specifically book 1, The Giver. This is, I really like Gathering Blue, which is book 2 in the series, but The Giver, another dystopian novel, is a book that has had far more influence on me than I ever expected it to, and I really, really enjoy The Giver. It's one that every time I go back and reread, which I've reread several times, I think I've read it at least 3 times. Every time I go back and reread it, it maintains its power that it had the first time I read it. And it's not just nostalgia, it's just that the storytelling is that powerful, and the ideas that are being played with our character who is given memory, who is able to remember the past, because he is receiving the memories from the previous receiver. And it's so fascinating the way that Lois Lowry weaves this world and creates this world, because again, as a dystopian world, it's believable in some sense, with kind of the idea of we don't want to forget things, but we don't want them to be in our minds, so we're going to give all of the collective memory into this one being, so that one person can hold the weight of memory. And everybody else is going to live in a society where they have no memory, they have no independence, no free will. It's just they go do what they do. And if they don't do that, they get punished. But there's no memory, and so it's okay. And just the mindset of that, and the world, and the way that it has affected me and influenced me as a reader, as a person, as a storyteller, it's something. The story of The Giver is not something that I can just put aside and say, no, this book doesn't work for me, because it has been so impactful to me over the years. The last one I have on this list then is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. This is the first book in the Southern Reach trilogy, or not trilogy, in the Southern Reach series. There's 4 books in the series now. I love Annihilation. It's a very atmospheric, very creepy, very, what's the word? It's a epistolary novel, I believe is the term. It's basically written in journal entries for this character, and the way that we learn this story and the way that we see these pieces of this story unfolding, and the mystery of it and the confusion of it, and just the atmosphere, because the atmosphere is a huge one of actually all of these books that I read, or that I have listed on this list, are very atmospheric reads to me. They have just caused my mind to envision and immerse myself in these stories so much due to the immersion of the story, of the writing and of the book, and that has allowed me as a reader to attach myself and to understand the story being told that much stronger. And it's just a fantastic, Annihilation is just a fantastic, creepy story. My fear throughout, I went into it with this idea of, I really hope the ending of this book doesn't end up being the answer being aliens, because sometimes fantasy or sometimes science fiction books do that, and while that's not necessarily a bad thing, I really did not want that to be the case with Annihilation, and the ending of Annihilation ended up working really well for me, and I went into the book with one set of expectations, not knowing at all what the book was, just knowing that I don't want it to be aliens. I don't want that to be the answer. And then going through the book, having my mind just completely twisted, and I did what my expectations were for the story, I ended up throwing away completely and just enjoying the story for what it was. And that's how I prefer to view stories, is just enjoy them for what they are, not for what I want them to be. and ended up working so well for me in the end. So yeah, that's just 5 books, and I've rambled now, I don't know how long it's been, far longer than I wanted it to be, but I've rambled now about these 5 books for plenty of time, and I want to move on. But anyways, I wanted to get this video filmed and put out. It's at the moment I'm kind of thinking and making a lot of videos on science fiction. As you should see, the video before this should be a video about I don't know if it'll be exactly before this or one of the videos before this, but it should be basically like my adventure through science fiction, like I've been doing with the Arthurian literature videos, and this is just talking about all this science fiction that I've read for over the past couple of years, and just briefly going through them and pulling out specific ones to talk about more in depth. And so kind of there's that one, there's this one, I've got another video, I haven't quite figured out how to make it work yet, but it's just like an idea of my thoughts on science fiction as a genre, and I'll get to that pretty soon. Probably might be the next video that I release, in terms of the next Thursday video that I release. I know I'm rambling now and I need to stop that. So anyways, thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. Please let me know some of your favorite science fiction reads, and I will try and add them to my TBR. That other video that I've just mentioned would be a good one for you to check to see if I've already read it or verify that I haven't or whatever. And yeah, I'm rambling now. I'm taking too long. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday, and our social media is linked in the description down below. We will see you guys again soon. Stay warm.